This is the moment my heart sank when they said to me, we don't have a website. And they're like, I think you've been scammed. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. That was money for my wedding. That was for my future wife, my family.
This is Jason Loyola. He's a Melbourne dad who lost $120,000 in what government authorities described as a sophisticated scam. He was lured into investing with a company spruiking big company names such as Elon Musk's Starlink.
Everything they said sounded very, very legit. I saw their website. The website looked great. On the bottom of the website, they had an ABN number. They had an AFSL number. They had all that. I went on the MoneySmart website just to make sure they were legit. Nothing there at all either. I started with like a small investment, so it was like 10,000 I think at first, and then over time it was a little bit more, so maybe like 15 and 20. It wasn't just like a one-time thing and then they took my money, if that makes sense. It was more of a they built a relationship with you, right? And that's one thing that they're really good at. They're really good at that psychological thing.
Then things started to go really wrong. Jason tried to withdraw the $60,000 he had invested, as well as the money made as his wedding loomed, but he was met with silence. He married the love of his life, he went on his honeymoon and returned to work while desperately trying to contact the company. He did some digging and thought he had uncovered an Australian company who held his cash.
This was the moment my heart sank when they said to me, we don't have a website. And they're like, I think you've been scammed. They said to me, we actually reported this back to ASIC a couple of years ago, saying someone is cloning them, mimicking them, right? It all kind of made sense. It all kind of rushed through me. I've been on this journey for the last 4 years now, trying to get my money back.
But it didn't stop there for the 37-year-old. He discovered he had been scammed a second time via the same global syndicate, losing another $60,000 after contacting the legitimate company and finding it had also been a con.
And the same thing happened with a separate company called Bright Securities. Exact same MO. I'm like, oh my God, it's happened again to me. So this was kind of around the same time, a month after, but it all happened. And here I thought, I'm a good investor. I'm diversifying my funds with 2 different fund managers and diversifying my portfolio. Little did I know that both of these companies now have found out after through digital forensics and through the group that I'm part of, ESA, that they are linked now.
Jason found a crew of scam victims across the world via a social media group. But he's also joined a new Australian outfit called the Scam Victims Alliance. Its president, Harriet Spring, said a group of victims formed the organisation after they decided they weren't going to take what happened to them lying down. They believe Australia is a honeypot for scammers, but there are also huge global issues at play.
It's all coming our way, and with AI, it's just going to be a juggernaut of sophistication that we can't even imagine how bad it's going to get. I've heard of companies where financial advisors were in meetings with the chief financial officer in a Zoom meeting, and it was a deepfake video. And this company that I'm aware of lost $40 million in transferring funds with that one. These aren't foolish people falling for easy tricks. This is predatory. It's a crime. And scam, it sort of belittles what it actually is, which is a financial crime and an impersonation crime.
The Scam Victims Alliance aims to provide emotional and practical support to scam victims who are faced with navigating a system where it's almost impossible to get your money back. They also want to educate organisations and lobby for change. Harriet believes scam victims have been left to deal with the biggest consumer protection failure over the past 25 years. She is concerned this government scam prevention framework passed this year but has little detail and doesn't go far enough.
They've been asleep at the wheel for the past 25 years. That's been both colours of government. Neither one can point the finger at the other and say they did nothing. Yes, the scam prevention framework, it's something rather than nothing, but it's introducing this incredibly complex system. Now, victims will have to not only take on the bank, but they'll also have to take on the multinational social media companies where they think the source of the scam might have come from. So instead of it being just a one-stop shop, now you're taking on multiple fronts. And these are victims who've been traumatised, often lost their life savings, and they're treated as though they're at fault because they are held entirely responsible. So many players in this, but it's only the actual victim who is the one left not holding the bag of money. The banks are still profiting from this. They profit from the mule accounts that they host. They profit from every transaction they facilitate. The multinationals are still profiting. They don't care in terms of social media. And the government is not doing much about it. What they're doing is introducing very slow, very heavy-handed legislation, and the devil will be in the detail. I just can't see government being agile enough And I actually don't know that they should be. And if they held the banks to account, there are quite simple, straightforward mechanisms and actually did their jobs as regulators to impose fines and to penalise banks, I think that the private sector would step into this quite agile space in a much more meaningful way than government ever could.
Meanwhile, Jason has also become a crusader, working with an ethical hacker and other victims worldwide through a group called Investment Scam Asia. He said the group has uncovered 150 victims globally with a loss of 80 million, with about 25 million defrauded from 50 Australian victims. He claims the syndicate was able to open bank accounts in Australia and overseas without obstacles. The syndicate started off terrorising Europeans before moving on to Australians and New Zealanders.
When I gave my information to the forensic guy, he went through it all and he started to link it all up. He started to link up the fake broker names or the fake bank accounts, and he realized, a broker over here on this side of the world was using this bank account and so was this one. So he's like, they had to match at some point. They were using the same accounts. He found vulnerabilities. He went in there. He got database dumps of victims and he would send it to us and go, hey, there's more. Holy shit. I thought it kind of ended with me and that was it. And then I started to realize there's a lot of guys here, and he would find sometimes people from back in the past. So you go, hey, look, I found these guys in the database that was probably from 2 years ago. So me being me, and again, no one's helping me, right? ASIC are useless, banks are useless. I'm like, I'm going to do something about this. So we kind of took matters into our own hands. So yeah, I've been coordinating with lots of Australian victims now. I call them up based off the forensics that we find them on. I tell them that they're being scammed. Half the time they tell me to f off because they think I'm a scammer too. Eventually they go, oh my God, yeah, you're right. But at the end of the day, I always say this to people, right? Whether it's 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, it's all money that you shouldn't have lost that could have been stopped, in my opinion, by all these places that have the power to stop it. I don't have the power to stop scams.